Okay, it's 6 o'clock, we will begin. I'll stand for the invocation and recommendations.
Let's bow our heads. Our most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, Lord, again we call upon thy name. Father, we ask that you be with us today. If it's thy will, let us see the night. If thy will, let us see the daylight of the new tomorrow. If not, pursue us in thy glory. Our Father, we ask that you be with this meeting tonight. Bless everyone we humbly pray in thy name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next thing on the agenda is reading and approval of the previous meeting minutes.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, motion carries. We have no old business, so we'll move on to new business. The first one is to rezone by Geisen Northgate Investments. At this point, we need to open a formal hearing on this, and also the hearing is now open. We'll ask the office to give us a...
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Brad Geisen, representing Northgate Investments LLC, has applied to rezone 1.7 acres adjacent to Hubbard Road, which is off Steve Tate behind the Northgate Shopping Center. And this is landlocked property. Behind the Northgate Shopping Center is some mini warehouses, and this property adjacent to it is proposed for additional mini warehouses. Mini warehouses are allowed in the highway business zoning district, but not in the current zoning district, neighborhood commercial. So it's pretty much a basic rezoning from medium to more general commercial. Around it, there's property on Hubbard Road that's not being used for a whole lot. Across Hubbard Road, there's a Dawson County fire station. Down Hubbard Road from there, there's a lot with recreational vehicles and other type, boats and things being stored. And so it's pretty much commercial zoning around there, many warehouses, Northgate, and there weren't any issues of concern. Staff did not receive any calls in opposition. We got some questions about it, but there wasn't anything unusual. We looked at it from the criteria for consideration, and nothing stuck out as unusual, so staff recommends approval.
Is there anyone here from Northgate Investments? Jeff, would you like to add anything?
No, that's a perfect job.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
Well, since it's landlocked, how are you going to get access?
It is it's connected to Northgate's Georgia Mountain Storage, which is currently a mini warehouse. So the back of the back of Georgia Mountain Storage would just be an addition to it, and it would just be in a continuation. So once you enter Georgia Mountain Storage, there would just be additional warehouses on the mini warehouses on the land. But it really would be the only way to get to the land. Otherwise, the land would be completely unusable.
So is that what the Big Canoe HOA or POA owns, that the other source that you're going to
So yeah, the Big Canoe owns the storage facility behind Georgia Mountain Storage.
Oh, okay.
Any more questions?
Well, since you're a competitor of them, that's very nice of them and give you access.
No. Georgia Mountain Storage is different than the Big Canoe POA. So Georgia Mountain Storage's mini warehouse is open to the public.
Okay.
Big Canoe POA is a piece of land owned by Big Canoe that rents to like RVs and stored, on land. This would be going through Georgia Mountain Storage. So it's actually all the same owner. Georgia Mountain Storage
Oh, okay.
will be the same owner as the parcel.
Gotcha.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor, raise your right hand. And the motion is carried. That concludes that item, and that is officially closed. The next thing on the agenda is a text amendment that changes to section 67 of an amendment.
Could I ask you to speak up just a little more?
Okay, the next thing on the, I'm sorry, thank you, is an amendment to chapter 67, and we will now open a formal hearing on that, and I will ask the office to give us a statement on that.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. I'll note that there's a slight change to what was initially proposed. Initially, it included turkey shoots. At this time, turkey shoots are not being addressed. Therefore, if in the future somebody wants a nonprofit, fundraiser, a church event, or just wants to have any kind of turkey shoot in Pickens County, there would be no need for a permit, a license, anything like that. There are no proposed changes for turkey shoots. This is only for new commercial outdoor shooting ranges. So if somebody wants to have a new commercial outdoor shooting range in the future, then they would need to get a business license from Pickens County, and if that was a proposed outdoor shooting range in the agriculture zoning district, then there would be some standards that would go along with it. The most important probably is that it be designed to NRA standards. And again, this change only applies to new commercial outdoor shooting ranges. It would not affect citizens' right to bear arms, would not affect private property that's non-commercial, and would not affect existing shooting ranges.
Okay, thank you. We have several people who asked to speak on this matter. Roger Lund.
I don't know if I ought to be the first one or the last. I have questions about the necessity of this particular piece of legislation. You're trying to get a special use permit for commercial outdoor firing. I understand that. But I have problems with the definition. Turkey shoots I obviously have problems with, which has been excluded. We get down into the nuts and bolts of it. What is magic and what research went into that it takes 100 acres to do a shooting range? I think Yellow Creek was probably doing a sporting plays on about 10 acres. The rest of it just depends on what's coming in, but I'm questioning where the 100 acres came from. Also, between 10 hours and 10 a.m. and 1 hour before sunset, we're going to have an almanac to find out when sunset is and try to back up an hour rather than just using sunset or using a fixed time. I don't think that anybody on this research staff has looked at a National Rifle Association range source book. It's about 300 pages. There's maybe 2 courses in the entire United States that qualify. So what you're saying by adopting that, in my opinion, is you won't ever have a commercial range. in Pickens County. The other thing, constitutional, the last sentence is absurd. Any other data required by the zoning administrator or his design designee. Clearly unconstitutional, overbroad, and would not be supported in court. So they can decide that we're going to have all blue targets, we're going to have all orange hair, whatever. That's exactly the things that gets zoning regulations declared unconstitutional. Is any other data required for the zoning administrator? So anyway, I'm opposed to it as written.
Okay, thank you. T.R. Porter,
Mr. Lamb spoke for me.
okay. Harold Temple,
Well, I'll probably be in opposition to everybody here. But let me say it out, I am the adjacent neighbor to the firing range on Jones Mountain. The only literature I have at present time, this short memorandum that I was handed, which specifies 100 acres, minimum understood buffer of 200 feet. And then, of course, it speaks of the shooting times and all that. But I would say at the outstart, if Pickens County intends to approve this, the 200 acres is not nearly enough buffer. If you sit in your living room and try to watch television and one probably 1,000 feet away and you can still hear it, then I would submit to you that 200 feet is not nearly enough space. We speak of National Rifleman Association and all that. I'm a member of the National Rifleman Association. I haven't studied all the criteria as far as the shooting ranges and all that. But I am in an agricultural district. I'm familiar that they just recently purchased some property right on the top of the hill. I don't know what this is going to entail in the future, and I realize we'd have to address that in the future. But at one time I'd heard they intended to build a 500-foot firing range right on the top of that mountain. And I'd fight that to the very end if I needed to. And if I'm addressing some people in the sporting club, you need to know that at the present time. But I would object to anything until we can get a better study on what is actually intended on that. I wouldn't be in favor of a commercial outdoor firing range inside Pickens County, period, based on my own experiences.
thank you. Jeff Anderson,
Yeah, I'm a member of GeorgiaCarry.org, and we're not opposed to or in favor of the proposal. I understand y'all want to make a code on this. We are opposed to the minimum of 100 acres. We think that's probably a little bit broad. Each piece of property, I think, is different. There's probably some much smaller acreage property that would be better suited for an outdoor range than, say, something that's near a neighbor. And if I were putting in a range, I'd want to find a piece of property that was far away from people, maybe near at the bottom of the hill. We have plenty of hills here. Maybe a 30 or 40 acre piece of property is a much better suited piece of property than the fewer pieces of property that are 100 acres or above that are left in the county. So that's just what we would like to have addressed in this particular bill, or in this code, if in fact you want to pass this. But the more regulations is just something that's not what we're for. We're neither for or against it. We just would like to have a less minimum on the acreage. We think that people should be able to train, have places to train, and that's what we're for. Thank you.
that was all the people who actually signed up to speak. Any questions from the commission?
Can you address the 100 acres? That was one of the thoughts that I had as well. Some of the other, let's see if I'm reading this correctly, Gordon County, for example, 10 acres. One of the other counties that you referenced in here was also 10 acres, Cherokee County, Catoosa County.
Right. Spoke to, in particular, zoning administrators in Bartow and Gordon counties, and then got research from other North Georgia counties. And what the two in Bartow and Gordon recommended was that consideration be given for potential current and future use of adjacent properties. And based on that, they said, you know, every property is different. You know, so you can come out with an arbitrary acreage, or you can come out with something low or something high. But they said, you know, regardless, you're going to get complaints one way or the other. And, you know, so they basically said if you want to err on the side of caution, that's fine. However, you know, if you look at the research, at least of North Georgia counties, because whenever I look at an issue of concern, I don't look at California or Florida or something like that. I typically look at Georgia counties, you know, not cities, but counties, because we're, of course, an unincorporated area. And so what we've got right now is if somebody wanted to come in, which we understand they do, because somebody approached staff that they want to have a new commercial outdoor shooting range. And if a piece of property is zoned agriculture, right now they can't do it. And so basically this is, you might say, a pro-commercial outdoor gun range change, in the sense that it's not allowed right now. It would be allowed under this proposed change. It's just a matter of thinking, okay, based on some research, what are some standards that might be appropriate, so that because there are some reasonable concerns about, well, what if an outdoor gun range, you know, is put on, you know, a property, who knows where in the county. And so whether it's 100 acres or 10 acres or something in between, you know, that's not a make or break issue. And if youth planning commission members want to recommend something different other than 100 acres, you know, I don't think that would be unreasonable, you know. But I mean, the research just shows that I found, you know, either 10 or 100 acres minimum. So there's no rule of thumb that I found. And I don't want to just throw out an arbitrary number and say, well, you know, 50 or 25, because that's sort of a in between 10 and 100. But if planning commission wants to recommend something different, I don't have a problem with that.
Why a commercial venture on agricultural property? That was one of my concerns.
I looked at the other North Georgia counties that are mentioned in here. Bartow, Catoosa, Cherokee, Dawson, Forsyth, Gordon, and Rabun counties. And in all those North Georgia counties, they allow outdoor gun ranges in properties zoned agriculture with conditions, with certain standards. So basically, you know, the thought was, you know, okay, one is what's good for Dawson County or Gordon County good for Pickens County? Not necessarily. You know, what's good for Pickens County is good for Pickens County. So, you know, I don't propose to put on restrictions for Pickens just because some other place has it. But it's comparable research.
Well, I noticed that most of these, Bartow, they just don't, they're conditional permits. They would have to come back and get a conditional for it to be on agricultural. Most of these were. Catoosa did allow it. Cherokee, okay, Cherokee did not allow it. All of theirs were, I think they do have agriculture, but but if you look out there, they don't include firing ranges on it. Their recreational facilities is any commercial or non-commercial outdoor facilities such as miniature golf, baseball, and drive-in theaters. It did not list firing ranges, which is, in my opinion, a totally different thing because of the noise. Dawson, again, was a conditional use permit. We would have to come back and get permission for that. Forsyth County, again, conditional, and it wasn't conditional for agriculture, it was conditional for heavy industrial, highway business, and commercial districts. Warren County allows it, but says they get a lot of complaints on the noise. And Rabun County only has, again, conditional in business districts. So, I don't know, it just seems to me that no one has addressed the noise, but, 200 feet is nothing.
200 feet is nothing. That's part of my concern is that this is going to have to take a very specialized or customized piece of property, obviously. And 200 feet, that says nothing.
The challenge when thinking about any legitimate use, and again, this is a legitimate business, is when somebody comes in to Pickens County or any city or county and says, I have a legitimate business, a legitimate use, where can I put my business? Right now in Pickens County, it would only be allowed by right in a property zoned planned community, which is essentially like Big Canoe or Bentry. And I highly doubt that a new commercial outdoor gun range would go into Big Canoe or Bentry. So it's impractical and could be challenged as possibly being unreasonable. It would be allowed currently with a conditional use permit in highway business, and that's mostly 515 and 53. So I don't know if that's the most appropriate, but it could be with a conditional use permit. So again, there's not really any property potentially in Pickens County where it is practically, and reasonably allowed by right. So then the question becomes, okay, where might an outdoor commercial gun range be allowed by right if there are certain standards? And other North Georgia counties allow them, whether it's by standards or by conditional use permit in the agriculture zoning district. So, at least, by staff's perspective, that may be reasonable.
I live in an agricultural community, and from time to time, we have people shooting, maybe even on Sunday afternoons, which I this allows also. And the noise carries in these hills, and that's just one. And my sister has to bring her dog in. We have a kennel in the neighborhood. You should hear the noise that starts up from that. It's not good for the animals. I mean, why agriculture? I mean, people live out in the country because they don't want commercial stuff in the area, in their agricultural areas. I don't see it in agriculture. Any other questions or comments?
Ma'am, could I address one more time? I don't know what the rule is, but could I speak one more time?
It's not in the rules, but yes, sir.
Okay. I hate to be a nuisance and carry on and use a lot of time, but an agricultural area would not necessarily be a good place for this for several different reasons. I know you've addressed issues recently on poultry houses in certain areas and all this. Pickens County is a poultry producing county. I used to produce broilers. Even at one time I had laying hens. I'm semi-retired now, and I'm finally got cattle. But a shooting range such as is at Jones Mountain now, or one that is within 200 feet of a poultry house, would be a disaster to a poultry producer to package chickens up, and it'd just be a terrible issue. These people need to think just a little bit more seriously about what they're asking Pickens County to approve.
Richard, you cited the NRA standards or rules or study or whatever it was. Tell us what is that NRA? What are the NRA rules regarding this?
Currently, as proposed, the standard number 6 would state, design of the firing or shooting range shall be in accordance with the most recently revised version of the NRA range source book. And it could be thought that, okay, if staff doesn't have a copy of that, or if staff has it, but, somebody, follows 95% of it, but doesn't follow the last 5%, that it might be thrown out. So I understand that argument that, it could be the idea that it's, a little too much. That may be appropriate. And so, Planning Commission could, if they choose, revise standard number 6 to read, design of the firing or shooting range should be in accordance, to give a little wiggle room.
Well, do we know what those standards require, the NRA standards require?
The research for other North Georgia counties refers to them, and just in speaking with zoning administrators in Bartow and Gordon, they just said that, in practice, it was a good idea to refer to them, given that on a local government level for our code of ordinances, we don't have anything stating, okay, here's the 10 best practices of, designing a commercial outdoor gun range. So no, sir, I don't have it with me, I don't have a copy of the book, which I'm sure is rather thick.
Well, I went online just to look, because I was just curious about it, and it's a $300 fee and a test and all this other kind of stuff. And it seems to me if we're going to require, suggest, or advocate, we ought to know what it is. And so I would say that we're premature because we don't know what it is, would be my thought.
And that's another option. Standard number 6 could be struck out altogether.
Well, it may well be a good standard, and probably is. And I'm just saying, I think we ought to know what it is. I mean, you suggested it ought to be included. Other counties think it should be included. And I would just say, I think we ought to know what it is before we make a decision to incorporate it or not incorporate it. Because it might have a bearing on the other issues that have been raised here today.
I think there's going to be a lot of technical specifications that we would never understand probably, and that we would have to have some reliance on.
But then we're going to open up a can of worms here that we'll never figure out how to administer, either us or the county or whoever.
So are you basically concerned with safety and noise?
I don't know what the NRA standards,
But as far as the purpose for having the regulation would be safety and noise.
well, that's
Two key things, certainly, yeah.
part of it.
Perhaps go directly back to planning and development to revise the ordinance along those 2 lines.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. I think we're premature to make a decision based on this. But I'd like to know, and I think the planning department needs to know what the NRA standards require, and then let's determine if, I think that helps facilitate an intelligent decision about what the right decision is, next steps. NRA has done a lot of good work and continues to do a lot of good work, and we're going to, if other counties think it's appropriate, we ought to include it. But we ought to know what's in it.
Sir, would you give us your name and
My name
address?
is Bill Kazier. I have a copy of the NRA standard source book not with me, but I've been more than happy to bring it up, so the commission can take a look at it. It's a very, very comprehensive book with more details, more information. Probably the whole class here, if it was a classroom, would be able to absorb in 20 years. But I'd be more than happy to make it available on loan. I do have to get it out because it is literally that thick.
That's a nice offer, thank you.
Another concern is we're discussing the firing range, but also in this is to put on agricultural land is stadiums, amphitheaters, circuses, carnivals, fairgrounds, drive-in theaters, golf driving ranges, miniature golf courses, batting cages, racetracks for animals, and motor-driven vehicles, trout ponds, equestrian centers, and a lot of other stuff. No?
No, ma'am. If you look in the memo, you'll note that the existing definition of just kind of a big generic use called outdoor recreation includes a lot of different things. And it lists some of the things you mentioned. And currently it lists outdoor gun ranges and turkey shoots. And so the general definition and use of outdoor recreation would not change. It would stay the same, and it's not allowed in agriculture for businesses. Now, if somebody wants to do something on private property and it's non-commercial activity, we don't regulate it, we don't think about it, we don't care about it. That's their right, as long as they're reasonably and appropriately doing it and not causing a nuisance. We don't regulate that. But so outdoor recreation that's not commercial, that would not change.
Okay,
The only
it was
change
under
is
the
just
proposed. We've got existing just one line, and then it's under the proposed wording.
right. The proposed change would only be that the phrase outdoor gun range would go away, because now it would get its own new definition in terms of commercial outdoor shooting range. We would just update the definition to X out one phrase.
Okay, so this other is not, so all this other is not being proposed to go on to agricultural land?
No, ma'am. Not as a commercial business. Again, that's the big difference here. We're only discussing new commercial
But
businesses.
this says commercial recreational facility outdoor under this proposed.
That's the existing definition.
Oh, okay.
Right, we just have to change, the definition in order, to take out the one phrase.
Okay.
If that's not changed, that'd still be a loophole for somebody else, another business, right? I mean,
Well, it says proposed here, and then it's got commercial under it, on the copy that I received in the mail,
Yeah.
so that's what I was concerned about.
Right, again, that's correct. We've got two different sections of the code. The first section is definitions. And they're not uses, they're just, okay, what is the definition of a blank? So right now, we don't have a definition of commercial outdoor firing or shooting ranges. So if we're gonna, as, a county, through
Okay.
Code of Ordinances,
Okay.
possibly allow a commercial outdoor firing or shooting range in the agriculture zoning district,
Okay.
we need to define it first and then understand, okay, would it be allowed or not? And this other definition is for something else.
Okay, I understand.
Okay.
I just didn't understand why it was in there. I think that was part of the proposal, was to put all of that under agricultural as well, so. Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Well, I would move that we ask the staff to review the NRA range source book and identify the differences between, or identify the criteria that the NRA recommends relative to these types of facilities, and then come back to the Planning Commission with a recommendation that incorporates what the NRA has recommended and the other things that we have heard here today. Because, Richard, that affects, to me, not knowing what's in it, could affect minimum lot size, it could affect buffers, it could affect berms, it could affect any number of things, and I suspect it does. And you put a requirement in number 7 here on the planning department to look at direction of firing, adjacent, abutting, and I mean, all those criteria, I would think that the NRA has probably formed some sort of opinion or recommendation on it, just to have a good document that we could all embrace and feel comfortable with. That would be my recommendation.
I would like to recommend too that we really take a look at making this a conditional, so that if one's going into agricultural land, into a neighborhood, the neighbors would know about it and have a chance to look at it, rather than just all of a sudden find out that there's anyone 200 feet from their property line. Because most of these in the other counties are conditional registrations, I noticed that you conduct them.
So can we accept that as a second?
We got too many things on one thing now.
I want to just repeat the motion, make sure.
Okay.
Clayton's motion is to ask staff to review the NRA range course book and identify the criteria that the NRA identifies as relative to these types of facilities, and then report back to the board in consideration. And in doing that evaluation, take into consideration the effect those standards have on minimum lot size, buffer distances, and property line distances, as well as the appropriateness of it being an agricultural district. Is that accurate as to the motion?
Yes.
If these standards though are booked that thick, I mean,
Over 300 pages.
what are we really asking them to include here?
We have included this.
We have included it. It's right here. It said thou shalt. And I'm saying, I want to know what thou shalt
Thou
is.
shalt do
Okay,
before we vote.
Listen, what I'm saying is you're referencing a technical document, the current revision of that technical document.
You and I don't know how technical it is because we haven't read it.
Okay. What I'm asking here is, we know that this is a huge document. What are you asking them to include?
I want to know what criteria is in that range source book as it relates to the things that he has articulated here.
Not word for word, but at least sections,
Yeah.
so that we would know what those sections.
I don't think this is a year-long study. I would suspect that book has got sections that pertain to these kinds of issues that could be researched and understood and reported back. And if it's so complex that nobody can understand it, I think we need to ask the NRA what they were thinking.
Is that a second thought, Karen? Did you second Clayton's motion?
No, do we have a motion, do we have a second? On this motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second now. All those in favor of what he had just read, basically that we table this until we have a look at it further.
Till he comes back with the
Right, with that, and also look at making it conditional. Okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. And motion carries, and that part of that formal hearing on that matter is closed for today. Okay. Any more comments?
Appreciate everybody coming out.
Did I say one thing here? I may be out of
Next thing
line.
is public comments, okay.
My name's Tim Pearson, and I've lived in the county for 67 years. But another thing I would like you to look at, who is going to keep a check on these gun ranges if we do open one, to see that they abide by the codes Is it gonna be additional cost to our sheriff department to have a deputy to kind of keep a check on them, or?
Okay, that section is closed now, this is comments in general.
Okay, well, I'm sorry,
That's quite all right, I understand where they're coming from.
but that's gonna be cost to the taxpayers.
Yes, okay. Any board comments? Any more public comments? Okay, the next thing would be adjournment. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion.
You have a motion? And a second, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Yes. Thank you so much for coming.